Um, Welcome. I am delighted to stand before you and have the honour of talking through Nehemiah 3. For those who know Nehemiah 3, you will probably get a sense of a little bit of sarcasm in my tone. The picture behind me is a picture of the walls. Apologies if you can't read the bits on it. Don't worry too much. But what I wanted to do was show this picture to you because it may actually look like one of the most boring pictures you've ever seen. But when I'm going to be speaking through this entire passage, we're going to do the whole chapter, this will suddenly become the most interesting thing that you've ever seen. Okay, so take a look at this. I'm going to be reading, look at this, I love this. I've got a pointer. This passage starts up here at the sheep gate, and literally what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through everyone who rebuilt these walls, and the journey of how it follows in the story is round like this, back up here, back up to here. Okay? And in a minute you'll realise why I've bothered trying to make this interesting. My pronunciation is the correct pronunciation of all these names. So if anyone thinks that they knew or thought they knew how to say them, you may have been mistaken. So, Askos repaired the next section. Next to him, Meshullam, son of Berechiah, the son of Meshezabel, made repairs. And next to him, Zadok, son of Banah, also made repairs. The next section was repaired by the men of Tekoa, but their nobles would not put their shoulders to the work under their supervisors. The Jesana gate was repaired by Joraid, son of Pasaiah, and Meshullam, son of Besadiah. They laid its beams and put its doors with their bolts and bars in place. Next to them, repairs were made by men from Gideon and Mizpah. Melatiah of Gideon and Jadon from Meronoth, places under the authority of the governor of Trans-Euphrates. Uzziel, son of Harhiah, one of the goldsmiths, repaired the next section, and Hananiah, one of the perfume makers, made repairs next to that. They restored Jerusalem as far as the broad wall. Rephaiah, son of Hur, ruler of the half-district of Jerusalem, repaired the next section. Adjoining this, Jedaiah, son of Haramoth, made repairs opposite his house. And Hattush, son of Hashabniah, made repairs next to him. Malchijah, son of Harim, and Hashab, son of Pahath Moab, repaired another section and the Tower of the Ovens. Shalom, son of Halohesh, ruler of the half-district of Jerusalem, repaired the next section with the help of his daughters. The valley gate was repaired by Hanan and the residents of Zanoah. They rebuilt it and they put its doors with their bolts and bars in place. They also repaired 1,000 cubits of the wall as far as the dung gate. Right, we're right down in the bottom of the picture as it was. The dung gate was repaired by Malchijah, son of Rechab, ruler of the district of Beth Hakerem. He rebuilt it and put its doors with their bolts and bars in place. The fountain gate was repaired by Shallun, son of Kol-Hoseh, ruler of the district of Mizpah. He rebuilt it, roofing it over and putting its doors and bolts and bars in place. He also repaired the wall of the pool of Solomon by the king's garden as far as the steps going down from the city of David. Beyond him, Nehemiah, son of Azbuk, ruler of the half-district of Beth-Sur, made repairs to a point opposite the tombs of David, as far as the artificial pool and the house of the heroes. We're on the way back up the right-hand side of the walls now. Next to him, the repairs were made by the Levites, under Rahum, son of Bani. Beside him, Hashabiah, ruler of the district of Keilah, carried out repairs for his district. Next to him, the repairs were made by their fellow Levites under Binnui, son of Henadad, ruler of the other half district of Keilah. Next to him, Asa, son of Jeshua, ruler of Mizpah, repaired another section from a point facing the ascent to the armory as far as the angle of the wall. Next to him, Baruch, son of Zabbai, zealously repaired another section from the angle to the entrance of the house of Eloshib, the high priest. Next to him, Meremoth, son of Uriah, the son of Haskoz, repaired another section from the entrance of Eliashib's house to the end of it. We're getting there, I promise. The repairs next to him were made by the priests from the surrounding region. Beyond them, Benjamin and Hashub made repairs in front of their house. And next to them, Azariah, son of Messiah, the son of Ananiah, made repairs beside their house. Next to him, Benoi, son of Henadad, repaired another section from Azariah's house to the angle and the corner. And Palal, son of Uzai, worked opposite the angle and the tower projected from the upper palace next to the court of the guard. Next to him, Pedaiah, son of Parosh, and the temple servants living on the hill of Ophel made repairs up to a point opposite the water gate toward the east and the projecting tower. Next to them, the men of Tekoa repaired another section from the great projecting tower to the wall of Ophel. Above the horse gate, the priests made repairs, each in front of his own house. Next to them, Zadok, son of Immer, made repairs opposite his house. Next to him, Shemaiah, son of Shechaniah, the guard at the east gate, made repairs. Next to them, Hananiah, son of Shelemiah, and Hanan, the sixth son of Zalaph, repaired another section. Next to them, Meshullam, son of Berechiah, made repairs opposite the living quarters. Next to him, Malchijah, one of the goldsmiths, made repairs as far as the house of the temple servants and the merchants opposite the inspection gate and as far as the room above the corner. And between the room above the corner and the sheep gate, the goldsmiths and its merchants made repairs. Phew. There we go. We did it. Okay. So, as I'm sure you'll agree, this is one of the most action-packed, inspiring passages in the Bible. I don't know about you, but Nehemiah 3 is highlighted in my Bible. I often, when I know my family or friends are going through hard times, I sometimes send them a passage from Nehemiah 3, just so that they know they're not alone. I imagine if we had time to share in this room, there'd be many of us who were drawn to worship God and brought to our knees by some of the words in this passage. Maybe not. I don't know about you, essentially to me, this basically is like a Hebrew phone book mixed with a B&Q Instagram post. We've got a load of names, ones that I probably mispronounced, and a load of gate names, which clearly all have doors attached, ones which needed bolts and bars. So a challenging passage, but if we dive deep, there are some gems in here, I promise. So where shall we start? Well, let's start with what I think is the clearest message from this passage, and that is teamwork. Now, my extensive experience of building walls means I know that teamwork is essential for success. When you look around the church, I'm obviously the man that you want building your walls. You don't want to go to Tom, bricks are my middle name head, or Evans, check out my mortar possessor, or even Rach, let me knock you up a new garden, Arnold. I don't know about you, you'll often find me perusing the power tool section of Toolstation, just browsing, checking out the latest Milwaukee M18 or the Dilwatt DCK6. I can't get enough of them. So teamwork for me takes me back to when I used to play quite a bit of rugby. Less of the building, more of the playing. And I used to play alongside a guy who I shall show you a picture of. There he is. Let me introduce you to Mr. Bill Cuthbertson, or Cubby to his friends. Now, Cubby used to play second row for Scotland in the 80s. He's 6'4", that's just shy of 2 meters tall, and he weighed close to 20 stone. Now, in the 90s, he was getting a little bit slow and a little bit old, so he ended up playing alongside a young fly half named Nick Dutnall. Now, I want to tell you 2 stories about Cubby this morning. The first is to illustrate the kind of man that he was. Now, you might be able to guess from this picture but Cubby was tough as old boots. Now, there's this one time I remember showering next to Cubby on one cold February afternoon. Picture the scene carefully. Steam and mud everywhere. A young 17-year-old stood next to this man mountain. Now, it had been a particularly muddy game, and so I was washing the sludge from my beautiful locks, and I remember looking across to Cubby washing his knees. Now, what's odd about that, I hear you say? Well, nothing other than the fact that Cubby had decided to wash his knees with a wire brush. Yes, this guy was rubbing away at his legs with a utensil that most people save for scrubbing their outdoor furniture. Now, Bill must have noticed that this young lad next to him had noticed the tool of choice that he had used for his knees, as he kindly handed the brush to me. Now, being a real young man, I duly took that and began to scrub the top 2 layers of skin off my little knees. So that's the kind of guy that Bill Cuthbertson was. Now, why am I telling you all this? Well, I want to tell you another story about Bill. When Bill was captain of our team, there was one particular match where we were already in the changing rooms for a match starting on a Saturday. And he told us to sit down in number order. Now, that's something that I imagine would cause havoc in a football team, but in a rugby team, we managed to know the order of numbers. So we sat down, and Cubby walked around us talking about the battle that was about to commence. We were playing a local rival. He said, if you weren't at training, I won't do the accent, if you weren't at training on Tuesday, just gone, go and stand over there. So 3 or 4 blokes slowly got up and went and stood in the corner. Then he said, what about Thursday's training? When we set out the game plan and worked out how we're going to win this today, if you weren't there on Thursday, go and stand there in the corner with those guys. About 3 other blokes sheepishly got up and went and stood in the corner. Cubby then turns to all the guys sat down and said, look at all those gaps. Look at what those bleepers have done to our team. Look around where those big holes are. And I looked, and there were clearly some big holes. Big hole in the scrum and a big hole in the backs. You're going to have to fill those gaps, he said to the lads sat down. And then he turned to the increasingly self-conscious few in the corner, and he said, look at the holes you have made in this team. Look at the players you've let down, your teammates, your mates. You've let us open. You've let our teammates be at risk. Your actions have allowed the opposition a chance to win. What you have now got to do is to work harder than you've ever worked before to fill those gaps. And let me tell you, those 6 blokes have never played so well in all their lives. And I can tell you now, no one was missing at training the following Tuesday. Now, I'm not saying that Steve should stand here and start a Sunday morning by asking who was at prayer meeting the following Sunday, the previous Sunday, and ask them to come and sit here on the stage. But what I am saying is that teamwork matters. We all have a role to play in building this church, God's church. A role or hole that no one else can fill. If we don't show up, there will be gaps. Gaps that others will have to fill. Gaps that mean some things might not get done. So ask yourself, am I showing up and bringing all that I can to East End Church? Am I fully helping where I can? What this passage tells us is that God sees our involvement. He sees how we serve. Let's think back to the passage. Every person is named. They're honoured. Their names are in the Bible. And what they did for those walls is seen. Their day-to-day work is seen and noted by God. We worship and serve a God who is as much about the ordinary as he is a God of the extraordinary. He is as much a God of the ordinary as he is a God of the extraordinary. Let's look at Jesus. When God came to this earth, he spent 30 years doing normal things, 30 years growing up, learning, and working. Jesus spent more time being a carpenter than he did healing the sick and raising the dead. Considerably more time. The hands of Jesus that had nails driven into them to pay the price for my sin and your sin were hands that had calluses on them. Hands that had worked hard. Hands that had swung a hammer. This passage tells us that work is good, that work is important, that God sees what we do. He sees the mundane stuff that no one else sees. The work that you do out in the world and the work you do here in church, he sees. 90% of God's time when he walked this earth was doing the ordinary. We need to get a renewed sense of what I am going to call workship. Workship. The work you do, and by work I don't mean just the job you do, but it does include the job you do. The work you do counts. It is part of your serving God, part of your worship to him. It's your workship. Worshipping Jesus in the day-to-day whilst working. And our work isn't just our paid occupation. If you're currently not in a job, the work you do is the stuff that you fill your time doing between waking and going to bed. If that's you, ask yourself, what is my worship? What should I be doing with my time? Jesus, the Son of Man, is our role model. And in Matthew 20, verse 28, it says, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. As Christians then, as followers of Jesus, we too are called to serve, to roll up our sleeves, to get stuck in, to do our bit. It's brilliant to get together and pray for church planting or for our Muslim friends, but we have to do something as well. We have to roll up our sleeves and get stuck in. Now, as we look a little more closely at this passage, we can see that not all walls and gates were born equal. Let's take another look at the map. There is our map. So it's interesting to note that, as I said at the start, this passage starts with the sheep gate, right? Up here. So here's the temple, and that is the sheep gate there. Okay, and that's where our passage starts. Right up next to the temple. Now, it may be no surprise to you that the dung gate, the dung gate is there, right at the bottom, next to the fountain gate, which is there, maybe to wash away some of the stuff in the dung gate, perhaps. So just like today, some tasks may seem more in the limelight than others, but in no way does it make them any less important. Whilst the sheep gate, I imagine, is where the sacrificial animals were brought into the temple, right in the thick of it, the dung gate, or the water gate, which is just here, they are no less important. Just like doing the refreshments on a Sunday morning may well not be in the spotlight of the meeting, but just think how rubbish the chat would be after service without a tea and a coffee. So some jobs may well be done in the shadows, but God sees them all. And what I find super interesting is that if we take a closer look at our lovely phone book passage, a couple of things do actually pop out that we can learn from. Let's take a closer look at verse 5. It says, the next section was repaired by the men of Tekoa, but their nobles would not put their shoulders to work under their supervisors. And then again in verse 27, next to them, the men of Tekoa repaired another section from the great projecting tower to the wall of Ophel. So what can we see here? Well, we can see that the nobles of Tekoa thought that this work was below them, beneath them. They wouldn't put their shoulders to the work. And yet, look at what the men of Tekoa go on to do. They choose to go and repair another section on the other side of the temple. How many times in your life, in your work, have you worked for bosses who felt they were above the day-to-day? That the lower level stuff was for someone else to do. They'd leave that for others to get on with. I don't know about you, but when that happens, I find myself thinking, well, if they can't be bothered to do it, if they don't put value in this, then why should I put value in it? All that basic stuff, it clearly isn't seen as important. But let's look at the men of Tekoa. They don't fall into that trap of going, well, if they can't be bothered, I can't be bothered. In fact, they go on to build another wall, I assume again without the help of their nobles. People see the way that we work. People see what we spend our time doing, particularly when they know that we're Christians. They'll watch what you do, and more importantly, they'll look at what you don't do. The key here is to know that in our work and our service, we're not working for our earthly bosses, we're working for our Heavenly Father. Now that's really easy to say, and yet it's super hard to carry out, and yet when we do it, it is so freeing. Have you ever had bosses that you don't respect, that make bad decisions, that overlook people, that overlook you? It's very easy to let that change the way you work, to lower the effort that you put in, to skip the jobs that no one else sees. But if you're working for God, suddenly the behaviour and character of earthly bosses becomes less important. After all, they're fallen people. And they're not following Jesus, many of them. So why would they share the same values that you do? Working for God makes every tiny thing you do suddenly the most important thing ever, because you're doing it for the maker of the universe. As Christians, we should be the best employees ever at work because our ethic is heavenly. Again, this is workship, serving God in our earthly work, being Jesus and serving others, even when others aren't serving. So let's be #more Tekoa. And a little story, a few years back, I used to work with a guy who I really didn't get on with. He was a super angry, unpleasant guy, and he never listened to anyone else's ideas. He was always right. And one day I was walking from our office with him to a meeting, and we walked past a homeless guy called Tom. And Tom was always sat in the same place, just round the corner from our office. And I would have a chat with Tom most days. And as we walked past, he said, "Hello, Nick, how's you?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Tom. How are you getting on?" We had a little chat, and then I went on to the meeting with this guy. About a year later, I was in a meeting with the same bloke, and we were talking about our bosses, and he was moaning about them and how that they weren't worthy to lead and that he saw things differently. And I kind of said, look, I think we probably need to give him a bit of a benefit of the doubt, give him a bit of break. But he was having none of it, and he got angrier and angrier with me. And then he stopped. And there was this weird kind of silence for a bit. And then he said, "Nick, I've got to be honest, you're just different from me. Homeless people know your name. I ignore homeless people. Your colleagues and the people around you are watching what you do. They're watching what you don't do, how you work. This is your workship." Now, let me tell you something. Have I got this all sorted? Not a chance. Just have a chat with Jude over coffee. I've been working with someone for the past 5 years, someone who I found super difficult to get on with and really struggled in my workship. So Jude will tell you that I've moaned about this bloke and other people at work probably at least once every day for the last 5 years. Now, praise the Lord, I'm leaving that job next week. Woo! And the first thing that Jude said to me wasn't, "What are we going to do about money?" Because I haven't got a job to go to. She said, "Oh, that's brilliant. I'm not going to hear about that bloke every blinking morning." So don't think I'm stood here saying I've got all of this together. But just like our sung worship, our workship is a discipline, right? We've heard already a bit about discipline this morning. And sometimes that involves sacrifice. Now, I'm not saying stay in a terrible dead-end job for the rest of time. But I am saying, follow what you think God is saying. And sometimes, as with the job that I am now leaving, I genuinely felt God wanted me to be there. And sometimes we have to sacrifice in that way. And it's really hard. But make no mistake that it is what we're called to do, and how we work is noticed. Now we read again in our passage in verse 20. It says, next to him, Baruch, son of Zabbai, zealously repaired another section, from the angle to the entrance of the house of Eliashib to the high priest. Baruch worked zealously. That means with great energy and enthusiasm. That's how we should approach our work too. Because not only do those around us see how we're working, so does God. In Matthew 25, Jesus tells the parable of the bags of gold. A boss is going away, and so he gives his gold to 3 of his servants. To one he gives 5 bags of gold, to another 3 bags of gold, and to the final one 1 bag of gold. The guy with the 5 bags and 3 bags put their money to work. The bloke with 1 bag digs a hole and puts the bag of gold in the ground. The 2 guys that put their money to work doubled what they'd been given by their master, and he was super pleased. The guy who put his gold in the ground just gave that 1 bag back. The guys that made the money were greeted with, "Well done, you good and faithful servant." The other guy was called a wicked and lazy servant. This stuff counts. We do need to do well with the things that God has given us. The work we do and the way we do it is noticed by God. So what does this mean to us this morning? How can we learn from a boatload of people repairing some walls hundreds of years ago? What does this passage tell us? Well, it tells us that we serve the God of the ordinary. Don't you kid yourself into thinking that Jesus doesn't care where we're working and serving. There's more ordinary than extraordinary in this life, and he is with us in the ordinary. It tells us that worship matters. What we do and how we do it matters. It is seen by God and it's seen by those around us. So let's be sure that our worship is where it should be. And it tells us that your attitude to work is seen. Let's be good and faithful servants. Let us serve just as Christ served. And if you're new to church or not a Christian, why do we serve this God in this way? Well, it's because he sent his son Jesus to die for us. As Neh was singing this morning, we make a mess of our lives. We sin, we fall short, we mess up. And that mess needs dealing with. And as we sung in our songs this morning, God doesn't just ignore the mess. Rather than looking at us, God looks at Jesus, who died on the cross to take our place so that our mess can be covered with his blood, the perfect sacrifice. So that is why we serve this God. This isn't about trying to earn God's love either, right? I'm in no way saying that we have to work in order to earn God's love. There's nothing that we can do that would make God love us anymore. He already loves us so much. But this is about following Jesus' example and not expecting to be served, but to serve others. Jesus washed his disciples' feet as a sign of his service. He even washed Judas's feet, knowing that Judas would betray him. If our example, Jesus, served others, then we should serve others too. So this morning, ask yourself, how's my worship in what I do in the day-to-day? How would it be seen by those around me? How's my attitude? Am I like the men of Tekoa and Baruch, or am I like the nobles of Tekoa? And what about here at church? Are you getting involved enough? Every week there is a a thing sent out on WhatsApp of all the people that are serving, and I counted it this week. It was 34 people serving this morning to make this service happen. Setting out the chairs, leading us in worship, sorting out the sound and the projector and the words and the filming, looking after our kids, doing the refreshments, being in the prayer team. What role can you play to help out? Which bit of the wall can you build? Don't be like the blokes in my rugby team that left gaps for others to fill. Let your workship be done zealously with an amazing attitude, using your gifts well for the glory of God. Thank you.
Thanks for helping us understand how to pronounce those names as well.
You're welcome.
Power tools you mentioned as well. If you've been challenged today by what's been brought in the worship, through the word, we've got a prayer ministry team at the back, so don't sneak out without responding to that. If you feel like something going on inside here, let God sort of, let people pray for you in that as well. But that is the end of the meeting. There is a prayer meeting tonight, 7 o'clock at Old Ford Methodist Church, so do come along to that. You won't be disappointed, I promise you, they're brilliant nights. But that's it. If you're a guest, please push your way to the front of the queue to the cakes and coffee first, and meet some new people outside. Have a great week, everyone.